I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Special Counsel Jack Smith, who was recently appointed by Attorney General Merrick Garland to investigate potential criminal conduct by Donald Trump during the January 6th insurrection relating to 2020 election interference, as well as Trump's theft of government records, including top secret records, and Trump's obstruction of the Department of Justice's efforts to obtain the documents that Donald Trump stole. Well, Jack Smith has notified the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals through a Department of Justice filing that he will now be involved in all future pleadings and all future court filings in connection with Trump-related matters. And Jack Smith informed the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals that he has read all of the Department of Justice's filings already. So for those who are nervous, it's going to take him a long time to catch up, he says he's already read all of the Department of Justice's filings and arguments. He agrees with all of them, and he will now be involved in all future court filings on a going forward basis. It's a big day in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals because today, November 22nd, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals will be hearing oral argument in the expedited appeal filed by the Department of Justice challenging Judge Aileen Cannon's assertion of equitable jurisdiction, which she found after Donald Trump filed this made-up motion called Motion for Judicial Oversight and Other Relief. And you may recall that on September 5th, Judge Aileen Cannon said that she should assert equitable jurisdiction because there were these exigent circumstances at issue, and she started this whole process with the special master, Judge Raymond Dearie. And by the way, Judge Raymond Dearie has been no fan of Trump and has been issuing scathing recommendations relating to Trump, which Judge Aileen Cannon, the Trump stooge who was appointed by Trump, has mostly overruled the objections by Judge Raymond Dearie. But you'll also recall that the Department of Justice had previously filed an emergency motion for a stay to return at least the 100 classified records that were hidden in Mar-a-Lago that Donald Trump stole. And the 11th Circuit found in favor of the Department of Justice there. So oral argument today on November 22nd before the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals relates to the 11,000 or so other government records, which are still subject to the special master process, which Donald Trump stole. And he's made all these absurd objections, and he's claimed, they're executive privilege. No, wait, they're personal records. Wait a minute. They were government records, but when I packed them in my suitcases and stole them, they were converted into personal records simply because I could do whatever I want. I mean, the most insane arguments. Those were literally his arguments. And I've told you here on the MeidasTouch Network that I am very, very confident that Trump's lawyers are in for a rude awakening before the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals panel during oral argument, because it is the same arguments that the Department of Justice has already prevailed on when they got their 100 classified records back. Now, turning to the letter that was submitted to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, this is what was submitted by the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice wrote to the court, to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. The United States hereby gives notice that John Smith has been appointed by the Attorney General as special counsel under authorities including, and it cites the statutes, in order to inter alia, which means among other things, INTERALIA, conduct the ongoing investigation referenced and described in the United States' response to the motion for judicial oversight and additional relief, as well as any matters that arose or may arise directly from this investigation or that are within the scope of 28 CFR section 600.4a. That is the special counsel appointment statute. The appointment letter signed by the Attorney General and an appointment affidavit signed by the special counsel are attached. We will pull that up right now as well so you can see the affidavit that was signed by Jack Smith. The letter goes on to say, Special Counsel Smith has reviewed the filings in this litigation and approves all of the arguments that have been presented in the briefs and will be discussed at the oral argument in this case. Special Counsel Smith's name will be affixed to future pleadings filed in all matters falling within his appointment. And then we have the appointment affidavit where Jack Smith signs the oath of office that he will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Now, this is also very important because, as I've said before, this appointment of Jack Smith as special counsel is not going to slow down anything. And I've been right so far. And how have I been right so far? Well, oral argument before the 11th Circuit was set to take place on November 22nd in connection with the Judge Aileen Cannon matter. And boom, Jack Smith has already reviewed all of the arguments. The arguments will be taking place before the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal as planned. There is no delay whatsoever, and I think we're going to see the outcome I've always predicted, and it may not happen directly at oral argument. It may take a day or two, or perhaps a week because it's Thanksgiving, or a few weeks to get the final order of the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, but I am very confident that Judge Aileen Cannon will have been found to have overstepped her authority. She should never have asserted equitable jurisdiction in the first place, and this whole special master process will come to an end. All of the remaining 11,000 documents will be returned to the Department of Justice. Sure, it's possible Trump may file an emergency application to vacate with the Supreme Court, as he did with the 100 classified records, but he previously lost with the classified records, and I predict he will he will certainly lose again if he files a motion, an emergency motion to vacate the 11th Circuit, if and when the 11th Circuit rules against him there. I get asked in the comments, so I'll address it here. People go, what's equitable jurisdiction? And I've covered it in other videos, but equitable jurisdiction just basically means that there really is no statute or law providing for a judge to have jurisdiction in a case. But in these very rare circumstances where someone's rights have been so viciously violated by the government, in the rarest of circumstances, a judge can step forward and say, you know what? There needs to be oversight here, pre-indictment, before the government actually goes and arrests the person they're investigating. Like, whoa, this is completely out of hand. And the standards are mostly the same in the various circuits. They're sometimes stated in different ways, but in the 11th Circuit, you have to find that there is a callous disregard for the rights of the individual being investigated. And then after making that finding, you then have to find that the individual being investigated would suffer irreparable harm if a special master, or if equitable jurisdiction or a remedy related to equitable jurisdiction does not take place. And finally, you then have to look at the need of the individual being investigated for a judge to get involved, for them to get their property back or their records back. And the 11th Circuit said, Judge Aileen Cannon, you never even found that the government engaged in a callous disregard of Trump's rights. So your inquiry should have just ended there. Why didn't your inquiry end there? And we know the government didn't engage in a callous disregard of Trump's rights because they got a search warrant signed by a magistrate judge who found probable cause. And then the Department of Justice executed the search warrant and found the stolen stuff that they were looking for. So there's no way they had a callous disregard. And then what the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals said, what are you saying? Even if we say that the first factor, callous disregard, is not a threshold inquiry, which it is, but let's assume it's not, how are you saying Trump faced irreparable harm and needs these records back when he stole them? when these records aren't his. They belong to the government. He's asserting it against the executive branch who actually owns the records. The documents belong to the executive branch. So that's how Aileen Cannon lost the first time, and she should never have asserted equitable jurisdiction regarding the classified records, and she's going to lose again with respect to all of the other records. And look, the fact that Jack Smith is so quickly appearing on these pleadings, these court filings, look, that spells more trouble for Donald Trump and the right-wing MAGA echo chamber. I'm telling you, they are freaking out about the appointment of Jack Smith. It's their worst nightmare because they know, and it's what we've been telling you here on the MeidasTouch network, that increases the probability that there will be a criminal prosecution of Donald Trump. Jack Smith is a no-nonsense person. We've interviewed people who know Jack Smith on the MeidasTouch network. They've told us, look, we've got no inside information on this, but he wouldn't take this appointment unless he believed there was a serious prospect of prosecuting Donald Trump, because that's the type of person that Jack Smith is reputationally. He's not going to go into loser cases or duds of cases. So we've got that insight. And then you, again, just see what the right wing's response is here, already trying to claim that Jack Smith, who's a very moderate, independent person, is a radical, whatever. You see where the right wing is going with this. But, ultimately, I think there will be a prosecution of Trump, at least as it relates to the documents. I think there should be on January 6th, and there should be as well on election interference, especially as it relates to the fake electors and Trump signing false affidavits. But we'll keep you updated here. But a great sign that Jack Smith's getting into it right away. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit the subscribe button. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers. With your support, please hit the subscribe button. And in addition, consider becoming a patron of the MeidasTouch Network. Go to patreon.com/MeidasTouch. 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 There's lots of great exclusive content there, but most importantly, wherever you are in the world, help grow this independent media platform. We are not funded by any outside investors at all. We are purely funded by you and you alone. So if you can, go check it out and let's grow this thing together. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.